Oh, it was off. Okay. Here we go.
Just the two of us. We can make it if we try. Just the two of us.
Okay, that was it. Happy Valentine's Day, Internet. This is the KiloBit Show. Back online, David. How do you feel?
I feel pretty well. If you notice, I'm well dressed today. It's because I'm going to a salsa dance tonight.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Then chicas?
Yes, there'll be many chicas. There'll also be many chicos. So.
Hey, you gotta have an even number, man.
Yeah.
50-50.
Well, it is a partner dance. Yes.
All right. So all the topics are down in the description, and we'll start out with the new 3DS XL. I have an issue with this, and I don't know if you do too, David, but they don't ship with a charger.
That's an issue. I mean, the fact that your product is only functional for 6 or so hours before you have to buy another product. That's kind of unacceptable.
You can buy it separately, and it supposedly has the same, but still proprietary charging connector as the previous generation.
Oh, okay. So
I mean,
how
it's
long
just
has this proprietary charger been around?
I'm not sure if it's still the same from like the DS Lite days or even the DS days, but it has the same as the previous 3DS, 2DS, and all of those. But they stopped shipping them with a charger, and you have to pay another like $12 or $13 to charge your device. So,
Okay.
how does a kid feel if he gets this for Christmas or his birthday or Valentine's Day?
Oh yeah, that'd be a funny gift.
And
Honey, I don't love your father anymore, so here's a TDS.
Anyway, so how does a kid feel when he opens this up and he's playing it, and then it just turns off and he doesn't know why, and he's all wondering, he can't charge it, and then how does the parent feel? He's like, oh geez, now I have to go get this other thing. If people aren't informed about this.
Yeah, it's so I understand that they don't want to ship needless product.
Mm-hmm.
So what I think they should do is it should be like you can get a charger, if not for free, for very cheap when you purchase the 3DS, so that they don't sell unnecessary chargers. So that someone who bought like the previous 2 generations with the same charger doesn't need 3 chargers.
Yeah, anyone or any retailer selling this new 3DS, they've got to have information on, or that it doesn't come with the charger.
Yeah,
because
it should be sold in a package that's at least offered by the retailer, if not by Nintendo.
And it should also just be common to have the retailer say, oh, you're buying this? Well, it doesn't come with a charger. None of them do. So we have this, and then, offer it for maybe a discount price, and maybe would be all right.
Yeah,
because it's $200, and you're not getting a freaking charger with it.
Yeah, that's kind of silly.
Now, I wouldn't have as much of a problem if they went non-proprietary, like if they used micro USB, because those are used widely through phones, for other devices. I can't say iPods, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, the thing is I think Apple actually was the company that set the precedent for having ridiculously priced proprietary connectors.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, there's literally nothing. Maybe I think your headphone jack on your MacBook is the only thing that's universal. Their power cords. And
USB
they also have
too.
USBs, obviously, yeah. And they have ASDs. They have ways they have buses for like really common media inputs. But still, anything that they can get away with, they get away with.
Yeah, it's just it's really silly. I never. It just doesn't make sense. It just straight up does not make sense. And considering that it does not, for a little piece of plastic, pretty much, and a cord that'll charge your device, the manufacturing cost of that, and to include that with your device, does not seem like that would be a big deal to Nintendo.
Yeah, I think it's just because, well, I mean, the customer base that Nintendo's appealing to, won't, like, they don't even have, like, an understanding of proprietary and universal adapters, and they're probably, like, not going to whine, not going to be upset, not going to vote with their money for this business practice, unlike somebody like yourself. Um, so if it's, I think it's just an easy, quick way to make like $10, you know, because
Yeah.
what's going to happen is at Christmas time, it's going to be like, oh, I have to buy this. Well, okay, like they're not going to think like, oh, that's unfair, because they just, you know.
Yeah. What is unfair is the lack of understanding across their who they're selling to. So, I mean, I don't understand why they can't just make a different box that'll include the charger and then make it, you know, $215, $220 so that people have what they need when they buy it.
Yeah, I think that should be. I think that's the retailer's job to package that. Yeah, and I think the retailer will do that and should do that. Otherwise, they're going to get people who are going to
And
call them up.
it's
really
never been the
angry.
retailer's job to do that before.
It hasn't. So yeah.
My phone came with a micro USB. It came with the charging cable. My DS Lite came with the charging cable.
But
My
at the
old
same
phone came
time,
with the charging cable.
at the same time, a lot of times these products come with really unnecessary, you know, additions that you're never going to use.
Yeah.
Like here's like these really shitty,
Apple
you know,
block
Apple,
phones.
yeah, that came with my iPhone, and I'm never gonna use those. That's a complete waste.
Yeah, I
So-
mean, I have some old Apple headphones too, and they work. If I need buds really quick, I can just pull them out, plug them in. But as far as actually like enjoying anything on those, it just doesn't really make sense to me how you
No, it's
can
not for an
enjoy.
audiophile like yourself.
Yeah, I mean, got them Audio Technicas on my head, and then this sleek blue microphone in front of me.
Cool. So
Well-
next up,
Yeah. So our next topic is all about virtualization. Now, have you ever experienced or dealt with a virtualization program platform?
well, I've definitely worked with virtual machines. In fact, in order to access the software I need for my programming course, I have to, you know, use Microsoft's. Microsoft has like a proprietary protocol for generating virtual machines on like a server somewhere else. And so what I do is it's really easy and awesome. So I just run the command mstsc from my run prompt,
Mm-hmm.
and I have my credentials saved, so I can just log onto the server and have the virtual machine, and then I have access to the software I need because the university pays for
So
it.
that is not actually virtualization.
Okay.
That is a remote connection that you're accessing. So you're logging into a certain network and connecting to their machine
Oh,
remotely.
I see. So that machine still is hosting the OS. So virtualization is when your machine, which is hosting an OS, hosts another OS inside of itself.
Exactly.
Okay.
So there's two main virtualization platforms that I know of, and that's VMware and VirtualBox. And I've only played with both. I played with both of them before, but it's only been for like an hour or two, and I had a really tough time trying to set stuff up. But I really want to try and get into that more, so that when I rebuild my desktop, I can have my Linux as my main OS, and then virtualize my Windows platform for, gaming or whatever I want to do on that. And that's
Yeah,
really a prime configuration, because you have a really stable Linux operating system that can basically read any type of file format. Or file system. That's mainly what I'm interested in, because your standard install file system for Fedora, for example, is ext4
hmm and that file extension is
system.
I know, but that file type, right? Or
No,
that
file
set
system.
of file
So,
types,
for
or
example,
the way the file types are read.
it has to do with the allocation of memory within the drive, how it's laid out, and everything. So your typical thumb drive is like a FAT32. Although that has limitations as well. Like, you can have more than, I think, a 4 gig file. So if you have a giant ISO, like 8 gig ISO on it, it won't work. You need to have a different file system.
Oh, okay. So this virtualization. So if you store the OS within, if the OS is run within another OS, you keep the Linux-based drive formatting and memory allocation with all the functionality of whatever OS you put inside, whatever OS you virtualize.
Right.
Okay, so that's the incentive.
So
for
it's like
virtual-
having, it's like having dual boot, but it's different. Dual boot is basically once your computer posts, then it'll ask you which one you want to boot.
Mhm.
And then once you boot into that, if you want to go into the other one, you have to shut the computer down and then boot into the
Yeah,
other one.
they're independent.
Right. This one, they're basically stacked. It's
Mhm.
running software. Your OS is running software, which happens to be another OS.
Okay.
And so, when you install Linux, you have an ext file system, and it's very efficient. It's more efficient than NTFS, which is what basically all Windows is based on, unless you go back to like 98 where you're on FAT32. But Windows cannot read, I think, any ext file system, actually. So if I have an ext file system on my thumb drive and I plug it into my computer, Windows is going to freak out and doesn't know what to do with it, and says, oh, this drive is corrupt or whatever. Format
So
it now.
I mean, even when you're running the Windows OS, they interpret it like the buses. They're going to run that information first through Linux, and then Linux can interpret the file and pass that on into
Mhm.
the OS it's virtualizing.
Yep. So if I have just
okay.
a regular, fat thumb drive, then I can plug that in, and then I should be able to access that drive in both operating systems.
Okay, that's cool. And so I'm wondering, this virtualization doesn't seem like it'd be so trivial, because the Microsoft operating system is going to be based on having these inputs and stuff. So you're gonna have to does someone develop that? Does someone assign the various inputs? So like you have your service manager. Does Microsoft Service Manager, it doesn't have any devices to service anymore? You know what I mean?
There's different options that you can change within VMware and VirtualBox that can change different parameters. I don't know of many offhand. I haven't done enough research or played around with it enough to really say what you can or cannot change. But I do know that you can change and limit how many cores you want your virtual OS or virtual machine to use, and your RAM allocation as well. So when if I have a Windows instance on my quad-core desktop with 16 gigs of RAM, then when I boot into Linux, I'm going to have my 4 cores and 16 gigs of RAM. And I'm always going to have that. But when I boot into Windows, if I only want it to access 1 core, because I'm just doing some word processing maybe, and maybe 4 gigs of RAM. Then that 4 gigs of RAM that I'm using for that Windows instance is going to be used by Linux. So as soon as that machine fully boots, my memory usage is going to go up 4 gigs in Linux.
In Linux.
Even though
Okay.
that 4
Even
gigs
though
within
is being
Windows
used.
isn't all being used at the same time.
Oh, okay. So that's difficult. So there's like it automatically allocates like a maximum number of resources regardless whether those resources are being used.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Like, so that to me seems to be an issue because it means that it's not like adjustable. So like if
But
you
it is
know that none
adjustable.
of your
I can make
if-
it 2 gigs or 3 even.
Okay, but let's say you have like 2 programs on Windows that technically are going to require, so and so many gigabytes at max load, but you know you're not going to run both programs at max load. But you're going to have to allocate like all of those resources just in case, right?
Mm-hmm. And that's how it was when I was using it, and that was like over a year ago. So I'm not sure if they've changed that, so that Linux only registers the memory usage that's used by the Windows instance, which would be more optimal, right? For the Linux side.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like they've changed that, but I'm not sure. Can't really say in that. Now, for the cores are like the more optimal version. So I'll have 4 cores within Linux, and each core will be using whatever it needs to, pretty much. And you can see that with the CPU utilization charts. But within Windows, you'll see only 1 core available. And it'll use, if it's using 50% for this program and jumping between 40 and 60, you can go into Linux and find which core is being used at the time.
Cool. So I think so. This virtualization it does a better job of managing your computer resources and interpreting media and files than Windows by itself or OS by itself.
Yeah.
OS X by itself.
Now I can put in a virtual machine right now on top of Windows to make a Linux environment. That would be doable as well, but then your base system is Windows. And
Windows as a base system is poor compared to
it's
so what I'm saying is, why is it when you virtualize Windows, right? Because there's a trade-off between like versatility and ease of use. And is virtualization kind of giving you the ease of use of Windows with the versatility of Linux?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Okay.
The only issue with that is you have to know how to use Linux so that you can get your
Yeah,
Windows
that's the
instance
thing.
up and running.
Okay. So, but in terms of, okay, so like within your Windows environment, you can still do all Windows stuff. It's just that because you're hosting it on as a virtual system, you can, if you choose to, do a lot of, kind of parameter changing, tuning and stuff like that. Okay, I see. So I see the incentive. Yeah. That's cool.
And if you want a different operating system, then you install that, and then allocate a portion of your hard drive to that virtual machine.
Okay. It's cool. It gives you a much more sophisticated computing environment than just having a single OS. No, I like it. No, yeah, I'm kind of curious as to where that will go.
And eventually, I'd like to get my laptop in the same boat. Although I'm not sure if the processor would be able to handle that, because I know the memory would be able to. Because I got 16 gigs in this thing, but I'm not sure if the processor would be able to keep up. And that's a big thing with virtualization, because you're allocating cores to different OSs, and if you're running like 2 different OSs in the same on top of another one, then you have to have the right amount of distribution of your resources.
Okay. When you're running one or the other, is it like a permanent allocation? So like, oh, Windows will always have possession of that core, and it's not usable even if you're not running the
No.
Windows. Okay, okay. So this
So
is only a concern if you want to run multiple virtualizations at the same time.
right.
Okay. Yeah, I don't see that as much of an issue then, because why would you want to do that?
Well, for another platform of virtualization, and this is a platform. It's not like their own OS, but it is at the same time.
It's like a bare bones kind of thing. That's why
Right.
they
So
call it
it's a
Okay.
platform made for Android,
Virtualization.
actually. Their own version or flavor of Android that is pretty bare bones, but it's called AMIDUOS. Kind of a long name. And they're supposed to virtualize Android on top of Windows. Now, as far as I know, it only is on top of Windows. There's some bugs, like when it's first starting up, it looks like it's going to crash, but then it works every single time. There's some other input ticks here and there. But overall, as far as snappiness and like performance within the Android virtualization instance, it looks pretty nice, especially for any developers wanting to make apps from their Windows computer.
Oh, sorry, someone's printing. Oh, no problem. Apps from the Windows computer. Okay.
So if you wanted to make an app for helping out with your Excel mapping, then you could do it from within Windows on the actual platform. So it's made for testing and development and things like that mainly.
Yeah, I think this is going to be really... So it's kind of cool because this would be very useful. Like, obviously, virtualization is really useful for developers. I didn't actually have a virtualization when I developed. I had Ubuntu on an Amazon server that I accessed. But yeah, I think that's really cool. And also, the idea that like if you could get like file transfer down between like your various OSs, it's really cool that you could like manage all your resources and share across all of your virtualizations and like do what's best, use each virtual machine for what it's best for, and also for just debugging if you have like some features you're developing for a program across all platforms.
Yep. Now, what makes it so nice for the developers is that it's not the 32-bit version of Android that it's running. It is the ARM version that they're basically emulating. And then they got their platform turns their ARM instructions into a 32-bit or x86 based instructions that your computer can then recognize and all that. That's how you basically communicate with the virtual machine.
Windows. Yeah.
And where was it?
So I suppose other than for development, like why should if someone's comfortable with Linux, should someone be interested in virtualizing other operating systems?
It depends. Like, I'm used to Windows, so I know my way around Windows. I'm used to opening all my programs and everything in Windows, just managing everything within Windows. So, but when I'm coding for Java or for my classes and things like that, I'm using Linux, and I actually have my other laptop loaded with Fedora 20, so I can do that. And that's just base operating system installed, nothing else, that machine would not be able to handle any virtualization. Maybe an Android, if that. But so I have my main Windows machine for all my homework and everything like that, except for when I need to code, then I can just pull up my other laptop. So if I can have
I'm
both
surprised,
at the same time.
Why do you need a Fedora environment to code? I mean, can't you?
You don't. It's just when you're dealing with the command and the console in Linux, the commands are different. So when I'm SSHing into the Onyx server in class and copying the files from that I worked on in lab there to my laptop, so I can work on them in my room. I know all the commands for that. And there are some softwares that you can use to just SSH into the Onyx server, but that's how they showed it to us, and I kind of want to get more into Linux anyway, so I just installed it and it works.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
The only thing that I don't really like about Linux is that despite all of the available like packages, I forget what the actual term is, but you can basically just go into the console and type in, yum install VLC, for example, and it'll install the VLC player, and it'll show all the packages being installed and everything like that. The only kind of issue I have is that there's no MP3 codec. I know that sounds kind of weird to really just have an issue with, but most of my music that I listen to is MP3. So
what is the other? I mean, I thought that was like the auto file format. Other
That's
than
what I
MP4
thought
is higher
too.
quality now, but the MP file type.
I know out of the box, it'll play a WAV file, which I thought was a Windows and audio video file,
Oh, okay.
which is kind of strange. I'm not sure if it'll play a FLAC. I really don't know what else it does play. I know it plays WAV files.
Okay. I mean, certainly Linux. It seems to me that you could get something that would understand. That could
Yeah,
convert,
and that's why I
MP3.
mentioned VLC. So once you go into your super user and enter your root password, you can just yum install VLC media player, and VLC plays anything pretty much.
So the only thing is you don't like is that it doesn't natively support.
Right. The native codecs that it has aren't necessarily always there.
I think that the nature of Linux, like I remember, like I
Except
tried
Ubuntu.
search functionality is like difficult in Linux, but I think it's because of the philosophy of Linux, right? Like search in OS X is really easy and it's highly visual. So if looking for code by its name is really easy, but in Ubuntu, like searching through file directories is different than searching for strings inside a file. And there's the grep program, and I've actually forgotten how it works. So sometimes the whole point, like the Linux philosophy is that programs should be separate things, and then the OS serves exclusively to integrate various programs. And each program has one specific task, and you shouldn't have a program that does multiple things. All programs should be split up into their little tasks, and then it's up to the user to integrate the program tasks.
And that makes sense.
Like for search. And so
However,
maybe that's
where
why,
does
that's why they don't-
virtualization come in on that?
Where does virtualization come out of that?
Yeah.
You're asking me?
Yeah.
Oh, dude, I don't know. I mean, how is that related to virtualization? Good
Because you're
question.
executing a program that is supposed to just have certain things.
Oh wow, that's really nice. Sorry, my friend Alan's making Valentine's Day gifts.
How sweet.
Yeah, it is. Well, another person came and gave me some chocolate. Um,
So you're saying the programs should be kind of self-inclusive. It shouldn't go out and fetch other programs.
well, the way it was explained to me was that the design philosophy is that you like some program is optimized for some functionality, and that functionality is pretty limited in scope, but it does it extremely well.
Right.
And because of that, it's a lot easier to combine functionalities in ways that are not necessarily obvious, but can be very useful.
Right.
And
right.
so instead of just having a search function that like does what, oh, well, it does this thing I want it to do, which like, and everyone thinks like, oh, all you could use a search function for is for like searching through documents or searching through directories. But maybe it's really useful for other things. I don't know. Maybe that's just a bad example. But the idea is that if you want to do it for that application, even if that application is incredibly common, and maybe the only use for the program, or for that set of programs, those set of programs should still not be kind of blanketed under one. And it's
like,
also true because, like if it really bothers you, you can just write another program that integrates those programs.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's like VLC Media Player is really good at playing media versus trying to type a Word document in VLC.
Yeah, like why would you type a Word document?
Yeah, exactly. And that's why you have Word or OpenOffice or whatever, a text editor. It doesn't play media that I know of.
Yeah, hopefully not. Yeah. Yeah, like I feel like if the Office suite were designed by like with Linux philosophy design, there'd be like, if in Word, if you wanted to like put an image in Word, you would have to call another program that generates images, and then you'd have to like say give it an index.
Are we talking about
position?
Code typing?
No, I'm I'm talking like even if it were software, like something that was already given to you. I feel like the Linux
so it'll
philosophy.
ask for what
the
directory
Linux
do you
philosophy
want
would be like, here's a directory of image. Like here, put your images here. Then assign each image an index value, and then like your Word document would have like indexes for lines, like 1 through however many lines, and then you'd be like, okay, put this in 15 and put it in center, rather than like the click drag, kind of thing.
Click and then hold from your file explorer into Word document.
Yeah, that kind of thing.
Now,
you know what I mean?
Depending on which Linux environment you get, because there's tons of different flavors.
Yeah.
Most of them can do that. There are some bare bones that basically are just your shell that you can type code in, but you can't. They're like Fedora and Ubuntu can do that. I know Ubuntu can do that.
Mm-hmm.
Ubuntu is like the main Linux. Like if you want to go to Linux and you have no clue what the Unix shell and all that is, then just go to Ubuntu. It's nice that it's open source too, but Fedora is a little bit more. I don't know what the word is, like industrial looking than like a user or material design. That's kind of a big term being floating around nowadays.
Industrial design?
Yeah. No. Material design.
Oh, okay. And what does that mean?
It's supposed to like incorporate more material aspects that you'd see in the real world.
Okay.
And be more just like modern looking, I guess. Fedora's
So
kind
it's
of have
looking
Fedora's looked
better?
the same for a long
Yeah,
time, pretty much.
dude, I was using Vim and I liked it. Dude, it's funny because Vim stands for Visual Editor. So there was a time in the dark ages when you couldn't even look at the code you were editing. Like if you wanted to look at the code you were editing, like it just it's so fun. Okay, can you imagine trying to code while not looking at your code?
Dude, that would drive me insane.
Yeah, like backspace, like oh shit, did I do double backspace or single backspace?
Your keyboard's broken and you don't even know about it. Why is it still not
Yeah.
working? Oh, I forgot to plug the keyboard in.
Oh yeah.
Last 3 hours wasted.
Yeah, no, I can't even imagine. I mean, at some point, I would just, I'd like write it all on paper, and then I would just hand it off to somebody to type in.
Yeah.
You couldn't do diagnostics or anything.
Which is kind of how they at least try to teach you. I know I don't do it, and I know that a lot of other people don't really do it, but when they teach you to start writing code, you're actually writing the code like on paper before you enter it in, so you can kind of work through logistics initially versus just trying to type working code into the computer.
I think that's silly because the whole, like, at least, like, well, it depends on the type of code. It depends on if the error message generated by the code are going to be useful. But, like, I always just code because writing it down, then if it doesn't work, like, how would I know? Like, lots of times we're like, oh, this code will work, and then no, it doesn't because error.
Yeah.
Personally, I think you should always be typing the code.
With coding, it's always a troubleshooting. Is it this? Nope, that doesn't work. Is it this? Oh, that screwed everything up. Is it this? It didn't do anything. What did I do? It's like in lab yesterday, we were trying to make a bouncing ball stay within a window size.
Mm-hmm.
And
Sounds like a whole bunch of if statements.
oh yeah,
Based on
yeah.
position.
If, else if, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Switch statements. We could have used switch statements, but we didn't really need to. But I always had the issue where the ball would get like stuck on the side of the window screen, so just like be bouncing around. And then for some reason it'd come out and like do its thing and then get stuck somewhere else and do that, yeah.
And you couldn't have, like, yeah. I don't know. I think writing code is kind of silly. I guess it makes it a little less intimidating. Because
Yeah. It's like you have a baseline, that's alright. Let me get this in. I'm pretty sure this will work, basic. Instead of making a ball resize, change color, and stay within these boundaries while repainting itself all the time, then maybe I'll just put a circle on the screen.
What are you guys writing?
Java.
Yeah, I was thinking because I took like Khan Academy's intro to Java, and it was all about animations.
Yeah, there's a lot of animations because when you're doing animations, there's a lot of logic that goes into what gets painted first, what variable is relied on for moving it across the screen. There's like timers and delays, and it's just spaced out within the whole code. It's not just in one small block. And when you're painting something, there's, if I want to put a rectangle in the middle of the screen, there's a lot of math that goes behind that.
Yeah, I know, it's surprising. I remember, it accurately, like, and then a lot of the things that you would think are hard are really easy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because it's easy to generate symmetry with the computer. So, like, you can make, like, a really cool-looking pattern just with, like, randomize the color and then just change, like, two parameters, like radius and angle.
Yep.
So, it's kind of
But, like,
interesting.
if you want to put a rectangle in the middle of a screen, or even a circle, a triangle is even harder. You have
No,
to,
I know, because
you have to find, like...
everything has to be defined from the top left corner, which is the origin,
Mhm.
right? So yeah, it's a
And
pain in
then
the ass
X
because you have
goes
to.
this way, but then Y goes down.
Yeah, yeah. So that's why, because relative to that origin, it's difficult.
I mean,
Yeah.
it makes sense now because I've been dealing with it for a couple weeks. Um, but yeah, you have to get like get width, and then open and close parentheses right next to each other, and then minus half of the rectangle width or whatever, because your anchor point for rectangle is in the top left corner of the rectangle,
Oh yeah, that's right. There's the
and then you have to
conventions.
get the
Like circles are
sides
defined. Circles are defined from
by
the
your
center.
yeah. No,
Yeah,
not
yeah.
not the center.
Oh no, not
It's
no
the
from
top
the
left corner of a
radius.
rectangle that would outline a circle.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, the geometry.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's move on to our last topic because we got onto coding from virtualization. Self-driving cars and hacking. Now, even with computers or cars nowadays, they have computers in them that tell them when to automatically shift to the next gear based on how much, the flow rate of gasoline to the engine and that kind of
Well,
stuff.
they control everything.
Oh
I
yeah.
mean, we don't even have what are they called? Timing belts. Well, I mean, no, timing belts are still used, but not all the time, and they're not manually adjustable. Like you no longer like
But like the
go.
shifter in an automatic car from park to reverse, that's just moving a switch, basically.
Yeah, I know, but they do. I mean, especially in like high performance vehicles. Like, I mean, I know because the central computer module on my dad's Jetta went bad,
Mhm.
and that screwed everything up because the whole point is that the computer has to actively calculate the incoming fuel rate, and then how much air should be added to optimize to be a good turbo diesel.
Mhm.
So as cars get more sophisticated, their electronics get more sophisticated. I mean, yeah, it's more than just the shifting; it's handling a lot of parameters. You know what's really cool is there's even this technology from I think Mercedes, where in your shock absorbers, it can measure the parameters and adjust the shock absorbers so that you always critically dampen. Right, because
Wow,
if you go over
that's
a bump,
interesting.
your car can go like dun dun dun. It can be like over dampened.
Mhm.
You know the because I mean most shocks are just fixed. They have a fixed dampening constant.
Right.
But this one has a variable dampening constant. I don't even know how it does it. And with that variable dampening constant and measurement, it can actually critically dampen no matter what thing you go over.
That's pretty interesting.
It's really cool, yeah.
And that's what the shock absorbers you say.
That's with the shock absorbers. So like the dampening constant, I don't know how they vary it. Like certain materials have
Yeah, it's
certain
got to be some kind of
viscosities.
special material.
Certain materials have certain viscosities. So like I don't know, like if they like the materials like it is the same. So maybe they vary like something like the length. I don't know. That's actually kind of a complicated mechanics question. I know about this
Yeah.
because I talked about it in differential equations. The idea is that the computer will determine the dampening constant such that critical dampening is achieved. And critical dampening is really hard to achieve because there's only one condition, one one set of values that give you critical dampening, and everything else will give you over or under dampening.
The difficult thing is it won't even know what to do because if you see a pothole coming up, you know about the pothole.
No,
the
it's
shock absorber
responsive,
doesn't know
yeah.
about the pothole.
Yeah, so it's pretty cool that it's responsive. It doesn't have any information about what's going to happen. It actively adjusts.
Based on what just happened.
Yeah.
That's got to be a quick reaction time because once you hit a pothole, it's done.
Yeah, no, it's cool. Let me see if I can find it. There's like variable shock absorbers, maybe is it? Variable dampening shock absorber. Yeah. Electronically controlled. That's
There you go.
obviously it has to be. It's from a German company. It seems.
Them Germans.
CF Friedrichshafen AG. The system is aware. The correct dampening hardness for every driving situation.
That must not be cheap.
No, if I remember, there were some mechanics in the class, and they said they had installed it. It was some multiple thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
Anyways, um, so
I
that's
mean, if
just an
that's
illustration.
electronically controlled, then what else is just like standard not electronically controlled anymore in a car? Brakes?
Uh,
I know there's the brake system. Is that electronically controlled? Or does it just
yeah,
pump
I
fluid?
think anything in which, anything in which anything that can be optimized is going to be controlled by a computer and not a mechanical system.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely fuel intake, um, and unless you're driving a manual, which makes a big deal out of giving the driver full control. Obviously, the automatic transmission
And even
and
in
all those
some
things.
manuals, they've found in some manuals that you're not actually moving the gearbox
Oh, you're
with the
not?
shifter. No,
Huh.
it's it's a computer controlled shifter basically.
I know that it used to be like you couldn't granny shift, right? Because it was bad for the gearbox. I don't know why, but they wanted you to completely disengage and then re-engage. And then they changed it. Now there's no difference between granny shifting and correct shifting, like racing shifting.
Oh, God damn it.
And that's probably computer controlled, or they put in some kind of mechanical solution to the problem.
Now, what
But
about the
yeah,
gas pedal in manuals?
um,
Sal, I thought you were the bouncer.
I don't know. I think definitely.
I mean,
I don't
it's
even
gonna have
know.
some system
But
behind it. It can't be just like, oh,
yeah.
let me just open this valve.
Yeah, no, obviously. But the idea is like, is it a complicated mechanical system or a complicated electrical system? And I think it's probably going on a complicated electrical
I
system.
imagine in an automatic it's computational, but in manual, I think that might be depending on the car. So,
And we're pretty
automatic versus manual. Manual, you actually have control. You're manually doing something. Automatic, something else is doing most of the work, right?
Yeah, you're
So,
just telling it to go. You're
what
not
if
telling it
that
how to
something
go.
else is actually some other hacker outside the network? Because
Well,
some cars now have your like 3G or 4G LTE like integration with Bluetooth and all that.
well,
And if they're self-driving, then can they be reprogrammed? Can they get viruses?
I think so. The self-driving cars are not going to be susceptible, or any more susceptible than current cars, until they start communicating uh, with each other for like traffic patterns, and until valuable data from the car, like its velocity and position, is being
Mhm.
communicated in networks that everybody can adjust to it. So long as self-driving cars are solitary and not communicating with each other, the they're no more susceptible to hacking than current cars,
I think
because the
I think
computer
the
is only going to be dedicated to running the car itself. It's not going to be taking inputs from external sources.
right, and that's why I mentioned the LTE and like GPS and Bluetooth connectivity within some new cars.
Mhm.
Because some new cars you can
Yeah,
just
but
pull up
those
your
aren't.
GPS and it'll load the maps and everything right there. But my car doesn't have any of that. There's no wireless communication there
But at the
that
same,
I know of.
there's no like the information, like that's isolated from the like central computer module of the vehicle itself. I don't even think they're like obviously there's like electrical power supplied to those devices, but I don't even know if there's an interface or a bus between like those devices and the central computer module. There might, I don't know.
There is in Tesla.
In Tesla.
Have you ever seen the inside of a
Oh,
Tesla?
but that's because Tesla outputs all those really really cool
You don't have
like
any protection.
figures and values to your screen, right? It tells you like
Which could, well,
it
those
doesn't
values
just
and
have.
everything could just be sensors. But um, from some recent pictures that Lou over at Unbox Therapy put up through his social media, he was in a Tesla. He was looking at it. He had a bunch of pictures. And have you ever seen the inside of a Tesla?
Yeah, it's got that really nice
It's got that
17-inch
giant, yeah.
screen. Yeah.
So there were some options in there to change your like acceleration mode for like insane versus sport. So if you're changing modes of that,
Then yeah, then there's definitely input through that device panel. Yeah, to the
and I guarantee
Hard
you,
to do.
it's only a matter of time. It's only a matter of
Yeah.
time. And as cars continue to progress in that self-driving manner, or putting more and more technology, and as you mentioned, like a network of the cars that are on the road and everything, then it's only a matter of time before someone does something.
Yeah, I think that's probably a fair conclusion.
And
I don't know if we. I mean,
and
yeah, I
that
don't
could be good
know
or
if we
bad,
fear.
because you have all this antivirus and other companies that have started up because people introduced viruses to computers, right? So there's probably going to be something else that people will try to make money
Tony
off
no
of.
longer cuts the brake lines. Tony makes a worm. Makes a worm for car computers. I'm curious to see if there's going to be like a standardization of like of car computers, because as it stands, they're all like their own little things in these boxes. So I wonder if you're gonna have a car computer at some point,
And there are
and that will be an
some
interchangeable thing.
there are some do-it-yourself type scenarios where people will like turn a Nexus 7 into put it in the dashboard, have it control their audio system, and you can connect Bluetooth to it, play music and things like that. People have done that before.
But that's that.
But
I
it's
mean, the
not
Nexus
really
7
a
can't.
standard versus like your when you go to put in a new audio system in your car. There's a standard for like the size and the limitations and the connectors for that, for your head.
I think. What do I think? I don't know what I think. I think. But I think it's gonna be a weird struggle because the sensors are not standardized among car manufacturers, and basically I'm wondering like it used to be like 10 years ago to get those things that read the like the error
the
codes
OBD?
from vehicles.
The OBD
that was
sensors.
Like, yeah, $4,000 or something. Now it's like 50 at Walmart. Like
Yeah,
like
you
are
can
they
just
going to
plug in
standardize?
a little Bluetooth connector. My dad has one of those, and he actually had the app
And
for
it reads the error
It'll
codes,
read
and it
that.
reads the error codes for like many manufacturers, like the majority.
Mm-hmm. Because
And
it's
so-
a standard that cars have to have for their emissions testing.
So yeah, so I wonder, is there going to be a standard for like other computing components of the vehicle or not?
That's an interesting point. If they already all have that OBD plug, I wonder if they'll just try and like add on to that so they can make it backwards compatible. Probably not.
They don't have any
That'd be
incentive.
kind of cool. If they could do
They'll
that.
only do it if their hand is forced.
Yeah.
They being the manufacturers.
But my dad had one of those sensors, and he had the app so he could read error codes. Like, one of the error codes was like the air intake was off maybe, or something like that. And then he did something for a few dollars, and it fixed it. Made his car run better too. So.
Yeah, did you see the Reddit post about the guy who saved himself $4,000 by cleaning
Yeah, I saw that.
They cleaning the corrosion off of his battery connectors.
Yeah,
Oh my
off
god.
his hybrid.
Yeah.
It's like, that's, and if I was looking at a car in the shop and I was doing that, like if he brought it to me and I knew all this stuff about cars, I wouldn't have just asked for a new battery. Like, what the hell? You're gonna charge this guy over $4,000 to replace something that doesn't need to be replaced? That just sounds like one of those rip-off dealers, because I know a lot of dealers do that.
Yeah, the people will take advantage of other people's technical ignorance all the time. Doesn't
Oh, yeah.
matter what field. It
Mhm.
can be car mechanics. It can be computers. I see it all the time. Even our local community college. Bring your laptop in. Only a $50 diagnostic fee.
Yeah,
Of-
I remember that.
But it's a flat rate diagnostic fee. $50. What if the only thing this person just doesn't understand
Is that they have a bazillion tabs open and they're wondering why it's slow.
slow? Yeah, and you just close the tabs. And that was like at a state institution. There's a public institution that was like so. It's just an unfortunate reality, because if you don't know, you have to pay
Yep.
as
And
much
and
as
this
they charge.
this guy didn't know before he ripped into his car.
Yep. Yeah,
He
it
took
was
it to a
good.
dealer. He didn't know, and then he's like 4,000.
That-
I'll try to do it myself. Then he found out. Oh, there was some
There's
corrosion.
a lot of people. There's a lot of people who won't have the confidence to even approach the problem,
Mhm.
and so, like, I know they're like my mom would have just paid the money and had it done.
Really?
Well, I don't know. She'd ask my dad, and then my dad would like freak out at the price, and then look it up.
Pretty much
And then-
anything I buy or have bought, a lot of research goes into, is it good? Is it going to have this for when or is it going to have this upgrade ability? Or is it going to be able to do this later when I want to do this other thing? All that kind of stuff. I take that into account, and it took me a month to buy that car.
Yeah,
Which
no,
is,
it's good.
that's
you are
good.
you are a very conscious consumer, and in addition, you can read an instruction manual, and you're
I
not
don't read
afraid.
the instruction manual.
Well, you could if you needed to, right?
Actually, that's not true, because I did read the manual for my car. That's how I knew not to get chains, because apparently you're not supposed to use chains on that car. You're only supposed to use cables.
Yeah, so that's just kind of a point of philosophy.
And all the parts that are in my computer right now, a bunch of research went into that, for the most part. Except the RAM. The RAM was just a good deal that I happened to across. It wound up being like $35 for 8 gigs of DDR3. That was like 2 years ago now. 3 years ago. I'm getting old.
Definitely, under 20 years old, very old.
I'm old, guys. I'm 18. I showed everyone this cup holder piece. I think it was last week or the week before, and I did have the next piece printed. That I don't know what's red. Don't ask me why it's red, but I did have the next piece printed, and it has a little knob here, so that when I go to plug it in, it locks into place just like that. And you can't see anything, dude.
Yeah, I'm sure it's really nice, Ian.
Yeah, I can show you later.
Okay.
Once I have the bandwidth back up.
Cool.
But yeah, so it finally fits right in there, locks into place. So the only other thing I need to do is get the other piece printed that'll glue on top of there, and I should have a nice cradle for my phone in the car. I actually found some sandpaper, so I smoothed out the edges, and that's how I actually got this thing to fit in the hole, because I didn't set my parameters to be small enough. But sanding actually worked out pretty well, because I made everything smoother rather than each layer on top of each other creating more friction.
Cool. Well,
I think that about wraps it up.
yeah, I think that does. That's all, folks. See you
That's all,
next week.
folks. Yeah, see you next week, everyone. Bye.